Yeah.
Welcome to chatWater. And we're live!
Hey!
Yeah.
Welcome to chatWater, where we chat about Blackwater. I was gonna make a joke, but I'm gonna be earnest today. This is a talk show where we talk about the lore, the characters, the world, the philosophies behind Blackwater D&D.
Ooh, I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. It's like almost like I want to sit down with every character and be like, tell me just like your ethical code. Like tell me your how you exist ethically in this universe.
I'll tell you our pre-intro thought. I had this realization this week at work that because I'm not directly part of the campaign, there's no reason I can't ask Tim questions that you guys can't know the answers to. And it was like a very strange like realization of like, Tim's always talking about how he wishes he could tell people stuff, and I have no direct relation to this. I'm like, I'm going to start asking Tim questions. And he was just like super open about answering stuff for me.
Yeah.
It's changed the game a little, boys. I'll let you know. It's a very different situation now. Now that I know things, I'm both very excited for things and also concerned. Because the problem is I don't know. He's not like, hey, this is what's going to happen.
Oh my
like
gosh.
we're not at that point yet. Maybe we'll get there. It's more of a question of like
it's a relationship building. You're getting there.
maybe Tim and I will get there. But it's more of a thing of like I ask questions and he gives me answers, and I don't always know which questions to ask to know how to figure things out. So like I'm being given random pieces of info that you guys don't have, but that I still haven't figured out how to put together. So like I'm basically like having prophetic visions of the future with no real idea of how these puzzle pieces fit together. No context. Because I don't know what questions to ask, because I don't know what you guys are going to do.
Yeah, if you like put both of us together, we're one Danny Carr. Like we're the equivalent of Danny Carr.
If you put both of us together, we figured out the campaign before it happens. So it's too dangerous.
We wrote it.
We're like a nuclear bomb. You can't put our two pieces together or it blows everything.
Or it blows out. Yeah.
Social distancing for you and I are incredibly important at this point. But no, it's been like just an interesting, it was like a really sort of like weird realization where I was like, I'm not playing, so I can know stuff.
But
yeah,
know stuff.
It's
and
very,
that drives me up the wall.
I know. And that's part of the reason I brought it up. And I think that's part of the reason Tim shares it with me is like, we know how much it'll irk you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
Speaking
fine.
of which, I've started working on raps for the Battle of the Bands, and I got so excited about the things that I was coming up with that I almost wanted to share them prematurely with you guys in the chat. I can't.
Don't do it.
Keep it at the table.
But it's like
that's actually.
I'm sitting there and I'm like, this is good stuff.
Yanis, I'll tell you, I had that one like Gladiator song that I wrote for letters. That was like the third week into creating letters, and that wasn't the only one. I've got other songs of Letters as People that I've just sat on for like a year and a half at this point. That's what it means to be a D&D player.
I went rapper
and a DM actually.
I went rapper because I was like, Adam's gonna play in this, and so like singing's off the table.
No, nobody can sing better than Adam.
I'm not gonna beat Adam at the singing game. So I was like, I gotta change it up. Like I gotta go beat poetry or like rapping or something that doesn't involve me singing anywhere near in time space to Adam Lucas.
I'm literally teaching myself how to play a harmonica. Like this is so dumb. Like I have so many other things that I should be doing with my time, like my regular job and like lore keeping and backup stuff. But no, I've just decided, well, you're gonna teach yourself how to play a harmonica. I bought Tim a harmonica like years and years ago for Christmas because we'd made jokes about harmonicas and it was like a long-standing joke, and he's never played it, and that's fine. But I do have a Harmonica for Dummies book on the shelf.
I feel like
I'm gonna open it and read it.
I feel like 90% of harmonica sales are exactly what you're talking about, where someone sees it and they go, this is something that seems relatively easy, I can teach myself, and then never gets you. I have 3 and I don't know how to play them because I go through phases where I'm like, ooh, I can do this, and then I don't, and then I forget where I put it, and then I do it again.
It's like all about mouth movements, and then you have to learn the scale.
Inhale and exhale, and then you got to put your tongue on certain holes. It's crazy.
I just don't know if like my mouth can do that. Like, I don't know if I have the brain power to tell my mouth to do that. But we'll see. I mean, we will see. And maybe I'll just be a really bad harmonica player, and that will be equally enjoyable.
Just keep pretending you rolled natural ones on your performance checks. And then it'll be,
as
mechanics and narrative.
The DM for the Battle of the Bards one shot, I can say there will be no dice rolling. It will just be who is actually the best performer. So, M, you're gonna need to get those hours up.
Oh, geez, because the thing is, I contacted a buddy.
If your mouth can't do that right, you're gonna need to figure out. You're gonna need to have a talk with your mouth.
I contacted a buddy of mine
who need to get a tambourine.
I contacted a buddy of mine who makes like electronic music, has gotten into DJing, asking him to make me some music to rap to.
Yep.
This is trash.
I specifically said to him, I don't need full songs. I think it's only like 10 or 15 seconds because I'll probably just work them into our gameplay. And now you're telling me it's just a battle of the bands where you embarrass us for our lack of musical ability.
Yeah. Every player will have 5 real world minutes to do a performance, to do a set, and I expect you to fill them.
Oh, man. I hope someone does a Battle of the Bards like comedian, like stand-up comic. That would be...
You've got a tight 5, guys. Blow the audience away.
Tim, so in the other campaign that is set in the world of Terrace, Tim did a Battle of the Bards, and we all played bards, but it was like a legitimate, like gladiatorial bard fight.
Oh, okay, but that kind of battle.
Yeah, but he had like built in a performance aspect, so you could either, it was like a pass or fail, and then like a check about like how much the audience enjoyed what you did, so you could like act against another player. And the audience might like that or dislike that. Or you also could play to the audience and just say like, fuck everyone else. My character came in second, didn't win. The bard in our party legitimately won, which was great. But we had all played like other bards. Tim came up with some great names of characters. Chiffon Bonhomme was a tiefling harp player in that one. And that was very, very fun. I played Denna. She's a halfling who plays a fiddle, and
I think we saw her in the Adonis one shot. Yeah.
She just lies, and she's just a cheater all the time. Like, she's the worst. But she's very fun. We should probably talk about last week's episode.
You guys, I think we found I love Clack, but he doesn't really feel like an NPC anymore, though. And I think I found my new favorite NPC.
Who's your new favorite NPC?
Be safe.
Be safe. I mean,
Codas is inspired. It's one of my favorite bits to just have someone introduced for the first time and be like, oh yeah, we've known this guy forever. Because in universe we have. Codas showed up, we're all like, Codas! I love Codas.
And he was very much forced on Tim, because like Tim just made a voice in passing, and then you guys were out the door and Tim did a voice and you all went, no, we're going to do this now. And Tim was like,
let's go back.
Classic Sam Smorkle move.
So after the Barmwich arc, we'll talk about the 6-month time jump that Blackwater had. And so we'll probably tie that in all together. But we hired Codas over, that's not true. Neppy hired him because I was like, we're not going to be here. We need a housekeeper, we need a guard, and we need a governess for Jar, someone to look after her while we're not around, because we didn't know she would be spending all this time with Kamea, which is also amazing. But yeah, we hired Codas. We didn't play through the interview or anything because we didn't have time during that session. But Tim was like, yeah, you hire a guard. His name is Codas Brundle. He's a half-elf. That's it. That's all you know. I was like, and he's a good dude. You did background checks and he's a good dude. I was like, great. Awesome. And we pay him and he lives with us and in the tower. He lives in the tower. And that's great.
Do you pay him? Does money come out of your thing every month? Do you guys have like a monthly
it comes out of the money we're making out of the Bar and Grill.
Bar and Grill, yes.
Blackwater Bar and Grill.
That makes sense.
Yeah, just, that's the only reason we have the tavern is to pay for, no, just kidding. We have the tavern for many other reasons.
Be safe.
I'm genuinely shocked that the tavern is doing well. I think Tim mentioned that a couple episodes ago, and I
Yes.
was like, oh, it's sick. I just
Oh, cool.
figured it'd be like Letters' passion project that he'd continually have to dump revenue in. Like, that's
Yes.
where his treasure money was going to go. Same thing with the fucking Dresden Trading Company. I was like, Letters is never going to see that in the black in his lifetime. But Tim's like, yeah, it's going well after like a month and a half in. I'm like, oh, good.
Are you going to use your
good things?
Are you going to use your successful businesses to squash your new rival?
That's actionable and at the table. But if
I did have to ask because Finnan made it a thing.
Finnan's gunning for you
yeah.
now.
Before it wasn't, and now he's chosen to make it a thing.
I mean, importantly, also Finnan has sort of rested his hopes for investment on Tova the Enchanter, who like,
now you're spending a lot of time with.
Who is potentially Letters' new boss. And I just feel like, you know, you earn a little trust from your supervisor, and when you tell them stuff about someone that maybe they're going into business about, like maybe they should rethink it, it comes differently coming from a trusted employee versus just some kid who's enthusiastic with maybe a good idea.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine if the reason that Finnan leaves the party is not because of all the shit you guys just dealt with, but was rather because of a business spat with Letters?
I don't know.
Why did Finnan leave? Weird business rivalry.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, related to like adventuring? No. Restaurateuring apparently. Oh,
Also,
that's strange.
I know we've only been in Garyang for, a day and a half in game time, and I'm terrified. Like, we almost just got dunked on by 3 full-grown Remorays in going across the ice. And that's just the beginning. Tim, when I was talking with Tim about Garyang, he was just like, oh yeah, Garyang's a hard-living, tough place, pretty nomadic peoples. People up there kind of have a rough go of it. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I'm like, oh my God, like, are we just gonna
I
thought for sure there was a real chance that like we're all like, oh, this is just like a travel encounter, and then like, oh, Callie could really die for real here.
Yeah, and she would just be gone. Like,
if that thing gets away with her in its guts, that's no more Callie. We can't bring
no more Callie.
A dissolved Callie back.
You know what you guys should do is you guys should cut off portions of each of your bodies. So like every day you take a pinky, right? And so then if something was ever to happen and someone was to die and their body was to be taken, you'd at least have a piece
to regenerate. Doesn't regenerate work on the biggest part of the body that's left?
Resident cleric in the house, Emma Carlson. Thank you. Regenerate.
Floor acknowledges resident cleric Emma Carlson.
Regenerate only works on limbs, and
no, but I mean, resurrection can be off of like ash.
No, you need a head.
Oh,
True resurrection, you don't need anything, but you don't get.
But that's level 9.
That's a level 9 spell. Resurrection, which I have access to now, level 7 spell.
You need a head.
The head. Yeah, which is why, I mean, when like.
Can you imagine the body's in the worm and you go in and they're like, "Can I get the body?" And Tim's like, "No, it's stuck." And you just like chop the head off and like pull the head out. And you're like, "We can do it with this. We don't need the rest."
Yep, like would do it.
Yeah, that would be a big Neppy move. That's got Neppy written all over it.
Yeah, no, it's so funny too, and I'm really excited to like introduce the party to like early days Neppy, because like early days Neppy. Like Neppy's not like Neppy's like a little creepy. She just has like no fear of death and bodies and all that kind of stuff. But like early days Neppy did some shit that people were like, "What are you doing?" And it's just like, doesn't matter. Tim,
we do things different in the temple. Yeah,
we do things just a bit different at Fulenis. It's fine. It's fine. I am like, I'm so excited because like Tim's been talking about Garyang for a really long time, and like I've known about when Tim and I have talked about the world and stuff like that, and he was like, I don't know if you'll ever see it in this campaign, like maybe, and I was like, oh, that's dope, I want to learn about that place. And then when we were getting all of these like pulls to go to Garyang, I was just like, oh my God, we're gonna go and I get to see this like very cool place. And he's like, then yeah, I said, do you want to see the map? I was like, duh, of course I want to see the map. So I hope we get to go like all around Garyang. I want to go to that warlord town because that sounds terrifying great. I want to go beat the crap out of Rysel. I have some thoughts about what needs to happen to Rysel, but those are all actionable and on the table. So
I do have Rysel thoughts.
I bet our Rysel thoughts are different.
I guarantee you they are.
I loved the I know it's you guys might have chatted about it the previous session, but I wasn't here. I love the you meeting with Volketh in the Firebrand Cafe. That was such a wonderful scene because like what I really liked about it was the fact that Letters really wants Volketh to redeem himself. Like there's a part of Letters where he's like, I really don't want to be wrong about this guy. Like I don't want my judgment of him being an okay guy to be wrong. And so you're like, I'll listen to your side of it. Like I'll talk to you about it. Like I'm not, I'll forgive like a certain amount based on like your history and like the time you're from to like have a conversation with you about what you believe, which I thought was awesome because I think a lot of like a pitfall that a lot of players would have fallen into is they would have forgotten, like at least I think I would have fallen into is I would have immediately been like, you're bad because everyone said you're bad and we established you're bad. But like, yeah, the real process you'd go through would be like, I don't want to be wrong about you. Like, like prove that I'm not wrong. Like I'm giving you an opportunity here to show that you're not the bad guy. And then the counter of that is the fact that like Volketh obviously feels something about your guys' like friendship or bond enough to come and see you and be like, I do owe you. Like that there's part of me that owes you a debt. And like, this is me trying to sort of repay it somehow. It's cool to build like proper 3-dimensional villains.
I mean, one thing I'm really, something that I only figured out once it became brought up with the whole Rysel, Volketh, Relauven thing is Letters has a relationship with Rysel / Volketh. He's just got Finnan's word on Relauven. Like, none of us have ever talked to Relauven, have ever interacted with Relauven. We just hear half of the conversations from Finnan, and we have Finnan's word that he's got somebody in his head who like is the thing. And so like this guy comes, he's like, yeah, Relauven sucks. I was like, yeah, maybe he does. I don't know. I've never met him. And like
Relauven only has access to like such fractured portions of his memory based on like,
Relauven might not even know that he's the bad guy.
Might not even know he's a bad guy, which is like when I think Yanis, I think you're totally right. Like when Rysel pulled Letters away, part of me was like, oh no, is Finnan's patron really bad? Like is Finnan's
he used to follow Dave, right? Like he's not exactly a great judge of character.
Low wisdom. Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. I mean, it did sway it a little bit when he was like super racist and genocidal. That I was like, okay, yeah, you're kind of playing your hand here. But at the same time, just because someone has that view based on the situation that they were put in, doesn't mean that it doesn't absolve Relauven. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like just because
there is a reality.
Just
where
because
Rysel
Volketh is
and
bad,
Relauven are not good.
They're
exactly
both not great. Yeah,
exactly. Just because Volketh has some questionable views doesn't mean he's incorrect about Relauven's position.
Totally.
Because
and like the Illyrians as a people, like we know so little about them. Like his mother's people, we know nothing about them.
So question for you, Em, because I know that speaking of our previous conversations on Chatwater, you spoke about the fact that you've met descendants of Illyrians before.
Yes.
And interestingly enough, Volketh said he scoured the world and he found no Illyrians. And I remember specifically looking at you and having a moment where you were kind of like,
That's interesting.
Do you think he doesn't consider like the distant descendants because they don't follow like the rules and stuff? He doesn't consider them true Illyrian, or
their bloodline would be pretty diluted. Drew, my warlock, is in
married
love.
to one, right?
They're dating. Dating.
You're like, don't rush me.
They're
It's
like,
going
don't
well.
rush me.
We'll see.
It's going great. Yeah,
You guys think about having kids yet?
no. He was like making eyes at her at a party, and then they danced together, and then they like went for a walk, and he like propositioned to sleep with her on like this like little island in the middle of a lake.
And you guys are dating now? Like that worked for him?
No, she was like, she's like, you're gonna have to try better than that. Grabbed his clothes and dimension doored away, and like left him naked in the middle of this bit of the lake. Yeah. And he had to walk back to his like, he's a noble of this town called
oh, good.
Yeah, a town named Tialmo. There's like these three families, and his name is Harkness Velvari. Or Valari, Harkness Valari. Sorry, Valvari is the one in Nephew's temple. But yeah, Harkness is great. Harkness is awesome. He has the ability to manipulate Serasite. And our party has an elemental skyship. So like we have one of those Illyrian skyships called the Violet Valkyrie, and it's powered by a ginormous piece of Serasite. And like Drew knows how to pilot it. The druid in our party, Val, knows how to pilot it, and Harkness can pilot it, but he doesn't even need to be attuned to it to pilot it. Like we have to attune to the ship to pilot it, and he doesn't. He can just do it. It's so cool. But yeah, they obviously didn't find him, but he's traveling with their party right now. So I don't know. But yeah,
it's either he didn't find him or either he doesn't consider him.
Exactly. Yeah.
The other moment I found really interesting from that session was Sean, your interaction with Finnan regarding the Serasite in the cage.
Mm-hmm.
It was such I liked it and I didn't like it. So like I didn't like it from like when you want a story to work properly and then the story doesn't work the way you want it to and you get frustrated. That I didn't like it from that perspective. But what I liked is Finnan is still Finnan. You know what I mean? Like he's grown a little bit. Like he's not, hasn't left the party, and he's sort of realizing that his actions have consequences to other people. But he's still Finnan, and he still like does things without necessarily thinking them through. But it was such a great moment where it really highlights the issue that Letters has with Finnan, and like whether or not like Letters has gotten better with him, and like Letters does consider him, at least I can't speak for him, but it feels to me like Letters considers him more a part of Blackwater than he did when he had the original beef with him. But there's still this part of like Letters where he's like, you fucking impulsive little shit. Like if you fuck shit up, like I will, like, and I love that sort of moment where it was like, should I give you my impression of like something I think could happen, or are you concerned that it would inform too much?
I
too much what you would do.
I will say this. No, I feel confident. I know what I'm going to do, and we'll see what happens. But there was a moment last session where there was some just like at the table miscommunication about like, I take like a piece of Serasite or whatnot, or like I want to look at the thing, and like Matt was like, "Can I look at the thing?" And Finnan was like, "Oh, I have the Serasite." And in my thing, I misunderstood. I was like, "Oh, he had." Like, that was like Finnan saying that he had the magnifier. And I was like, no, Letters has the magnifier, and the magnifier will not be in Finnan's hands. Like, it didn't come to that. And it's like, oh, we'll put it in the bag of holding. I was like, that is an acceptable compromise.
Give it to Neppy.
But there was just a moment where I really perked up, and I was like, are we going to have an argument about like where the imaginary doodad is? Because like this is a hill that Letters will die on about who has the doodad.
And that's what I was kind of like saying is like, I think it's really interesting that Letters and Finnan have this really sort of interesting, especially developing relationship with the competitive business, and the sort of like Finnan being a little bit of a wild card, but also Finnan has this weird sort of like emulation older brother thing with Letters, where he's like, Letters has a restaurant, I want a restaurant. Like Letters does this, I want to do this. Like it's a classic like little brother thing. Like he's not allowed in the Gravel Boys, and like that, he wants to be, but it irks him that he's not. And like it's a really sort of like interesting building dynamic. And like I guess my question is, how do you ever, or do you guys both struggle with bleed because, you know, I don't think it's a spoiler to say that you and Adam live together. I think that it's pretty established. Do you struggle with bleed in those moments? Because I could see, knowing you, that letters moment like was spilling into like Sean frustration, whether Sean was actually frustrated or it was letters bleed. It was like I could see it was like the barrier was becoming thin between worlds, and like, do you find that bleed affects you guys' relationship much, seeing as your characters are so opposed now?
This is something I was really concerned with after the last session, where I was like, oh fuck, because I was affected by it, because Letters cares deeply about this, and thus I do. But then I just had to like take a breath, and the reason why it's so contentious for Letters and Finnan is it's all about stakes. I'm so bright, my God! Oh my. Anyways, I can't. It's daylight. The point is, the stakes are there because like Letters deals with like people who are like Gorge or whatever, whichever one of them that carved their face into the bathrooms.
Gorge.
Yeah, like Gorge is a fucking wild cannon, loose cannon, whatever. But like it doesn't matter because like Letters likes the bar and grill, but he could like set on fire. He's like, oh, so cool, I'll build another one. Versus like the thing with like what Blackwater is doing is like, oh, if we fuck up, no one's gonna catch the world. You know, if we didn't take down Valsoom, the world as we know it would have ended. And you know, if we don't do well here, a race of people are going to be stricken from the planet. And so in terms of like, luckily Adam and I don't have those stakes. Like, so like any sort of shortfallings that we might have, it's like, oh yeah, that's like whatever. Like nothing in my life and like my and Adam's relationship matters as much as Letters and Finnan's current situation, and that's something I'm very grateful for. I love that I'm not responsible for the fate of the world.
It's really nice. It's really nice not to have the fate of the world in your hands.
It's great, but Letters does.
I personally, regarding the current state of the world, would feel much better if it was in someone's hands like yourself, Sean, personally. But I understand you don't want it.
Well, no one's offered it to me. I haven't had the opportunity.
Sean, take the reins.
If someone said,
take the reins.
Sean, take the wheel, please.
Like, if they want to come up to me and say, you want to be the ruler of the world and the decider? Well, I guess.
I don't know if the person who decides that kind of stuff is watching, but if you are, reach out to us on our Instagram. We'll put you in touch with Sean.
There's 9 of us. We can do it together. Like, it's great.
Exactly.
Like,
well, I'm a pretty good delegator, but it filters through me.
Sean's like, no.
I'm
having second
the
thoughts.
way Letters runs,
the power is changing Sean already.
The way Letters runs a company is very much the way Sean would run it. I am the decider, and I'll delegate, but there's no question whose name is on the lease.
Yes, absolutely. I love it.
Sean Deppner is on the lease, and then also submanaged by
the rest of us. Yeah.
That's how
I'm the assistant to the manager. No. You're assistant to the manager.
Yeah.
Okay.
Middle management is the best that any of the rest of us could ever hope for.
Maybe upper middle management.
Ooh.
Like, there's some mobility there.
Room for growth. You really know how to set it up. Shall we roll that intro?
Yeah, let's roll that intro.
Roll that intro.
Yeah.
I love that intro so much. It's my favorite. Okay.
That beat bops.
The little beat bops. So today we're going to be talking about the Barmwich arc again. This is part 3 of the Barmwich arc. If you missed part 1 and part 2, no worries. Head on over to our YouTube to catch up. But I will start with some announcements. So first off, today is International Indigenous Peoples Day. There is an amazing new D&D group that has starting to put out content called ND&D, and they're over on YouTube. Their episode premiered at 6 p.m. tonight, and they're going to be released. I'm not sure. I think it's weekly, maybe bi-weekly. So please go over and check them out if you haven't already. Their DM, Kelly D'Angelo, is amazing. She's such a talented DM. She was originally on Girls Guts and Glory, which is one of my other favorite D&D live play shows. So go check them out. And yeah, and we're very excited that this is happening as well. Also, thank you to our sponsors, Legendcraft, makers of fine woodworking products for your RPG gaming experience. Go check them out on Instagram, legendcraft.ca, and then that's also their website. And if anything of their products tickles your fancy, enter code Blackwater for 5% off at checkout.
That little scroll thing with the health and stuff that they're making is super cool.
Yeah, I think they're going to be releasing those as a Kickstarter, probably before Christmas. And then I think the Vanguard RPG Privacy Screen Kickstarter is going to be happening a little bit later, just because they're waiting on a couple of mechanical pieces to make sure it's like the best thing. So head on over to their Facebook page as well. It's the Vanguard RPG Magnetic Privacy Screen, I think, or Magnetic RPG Privacy Screen. Follow there for all the latest updates, and they're also on their Instagram too. Silverwing Armory, makers of fine paper products for your RPG gaming experience, a wonderful company out of Ontario. They have a project going on with Grimbeard Leather right now, so go check out their stuff. And if you like anything you see, enter the code Blackwater for 10% off at checkout. Also, as always, a big thank you to our dice goddess Keisha and our art goddess Tiana. Speaking of Tiana will be joining us not this Wednesday, but next Wednesday. She'll be joining myself and Jen and Len for character development, which is delightful. But this Wednesday, you can find the lovely lads of Blackwater hanging out with Jen from Fateful Encounters, who's the DM of that show, for Behind the Screen. Also, thank you, Tiana, because we have some amazing new art to release for Behind the Screen, so I'm really excited for everyone to see that. So that'll be Wednesday here on our Twitch channel, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard, and then we're back on Saturday for our regular campaign, and we have some awesome announcements on Saturday about stuff coming up as well. Prime subscriptions, Prime Gaming, I think it's called now, or Twitch Gaming, one of the two. For everyone who subscribes to us, thank you so much for that. It means a lot to us, and your subscriptions help us keep this channel going and put out amazing content, and also fund projects that we have ongoing that we're really excited to start talking about sooner rather than later, which is wild to me because I remember these projects were like tiny little things, and now they're just blossoming and they're big and they're fantastic. So if you are someone that subscribed to us, thank you, and you would like to continue to subscribe to us, thank you again. Your Twitch Prime subscriptions do not roll over every month, so you do need to re-up those, which is, a thing, but thank you to everyone who does that. Also, I saw the other day some people were gifting subs in the channel, and that's really awesome as well, because not everyone can afford a subscription, but if you're someone out there who likes to give subs, we really appreciate that. Two wonderful folks. It encourages people to come watch and come hang out with us. Also, you might have heard us talking about the Battle of the Bards one shot that Sean is going to be DMing, one of the, but that happens when we get to 750 Twitch followers, which is not super far away. I think it's like we're about 130 followers away.
It's dictated by the like how many people decide to follow us, which I'm both like I'm torn because I'd love it to happen sooner, but I also appreciate more time to prepare my material. So I'm do it, but do it in a little bit because Yanis needs time.
It's all about Yanis.
It's listen.
5 minutes.
I think it's
time performance. That's
if you
need to prep.
If you watch any of your guys' regular campaign streams, pretty sure you realize it's all about me. So
absolutely. I don't know if anyone else has noticed, but Yanis, Cody's been around for the last couple episodes, but Yanis has been taking some well-deserved time off from our Saturday campaigns, and we miss him terribly. And it is true. It's all about Yanis and Cody, and that's it.
I mean, it's all about Cody. I'm just the face. Cody and I are like halves of the same person. Cody does all the work, and then I get all the recognition. And so far, it's working pretty good for us. Cody's not allowed to weigh in on that, but I don't know if this is on your announcements, Em, but I also wanted to say people should go and check out Tim's was on a panel for Gary Con. This past Friday about making interesting villains. I don't know if that's not the proper correct title.
It's called Creating Better Villains. Yeah.
go check that out. Like, thank you very much to Fable 42 for inviting us to be a part of that. It's a really cool panel, and I think I can say, like, speak for the group that it's pretty cool that we're at a point now where like we're involved with things like GaryCon. I didn't think that our little stream would get there. I'd always hope, but it's cool to be involved in the community in that way. So yeah, I go check it out. It's super cool. And then join them, of course, this Wednesday where they talk more about DMing and all that good stuff.
Yeah. I am totally right there with you, Yanis. I think, I always had, like, when we started doing this, I was always like, what, and we'll just start doing it, and then our friends, 10 people we know will watch, and that'll be great. And now it's growing. It keeps growing into this like amazing community. And we're like, GaryCon? I was like, what?
I mean, I think we all knew that Tim would be the way that we sort of get in there, but it's still nice when it happens. Yeah, so go check it out. I can honestly say I'm like a D&D streaming / podcasting super fan, and I listen to all the streams and podcasts, and Tim makes some of the most wonderful 3-dimensional villains. It's super easy to make a villain that's always bad. It's much more difficult to make a villain that you can empathize with or understand, where they come from. And Tim has this ability to make our campaign very much a social commentary that is super timely, that I think is really wonderful. So, he's definitely a voice, I think, that or a person that people can learn how to make their campaigns more interesting from. But yeah, we are Meat Prison, and I believe you guys didn't
wait. One tiny little one, just not DM related, D&D related, but I just dropped off my my ballot today for the British Columbia provincial election. And I know we got some local people who tune in. Some people just don't know there's an election happening in BC right now. If you are, do some research into who you think would best represent your voice and drop a ballot their way. And if you're in anywhere else in the world where there's an election happening right now, make sure you're registered to vote. And
vote early.
For the region you're in, vote early, and be diligent and participate in democracy. I don't know if we can insert like a little. We can't. I know because I'm a producer, but we can insert we can insert a blurb under my face that says, Yanis's views does not represent the views of Blackwater. But I will go out on a limb and say, like, please vote for the person that we all know you should be voting for. If you're down south, the one that's not the dumpster fire, that's your clue. I'm just going to say it, like, there's the time and a place to be like politically correct and say, like, vote whoever, but one person is a threat to people's freedoms and one person is not. So please vote, whether it be your provincial election or your national election, to our friends and family down in the States. But it's important that your voice is heard, and it's important that, people mobilize to make a change. So
there's also, I know, a lot of subsidiary elections as well for it's like Senate seats and Congress seats. And like I follow, Tim and I both follow a lot of American politics. I know Matt follows a lot of American politics. It's so inundated in the media, and we're here in Canada. Please vote for the people who you feel best represent your region and your views, and just like vote to leave this world a bit better than we found it. Because there's so much going on in the world right now, and there are a lot of people out there who do not have voices, and there's a lot of us out here who do have voices based on the privileges that we are allowed by the color of our skin, our social status, or class, or all of that kind of stuff. So research like allyship, research like the deep systemic issues of racism that have affected, Canada has a long history of systemic racism and like a cultural genocide. So like, please go research dig in, do your, like, educate yourself, and don't rely on people who have been marginalized and oppressed to educate you. They don't need to do any more emotional labor. So that's my PSA about that, before I start talking about Fantasyland. But yes, I'm very passionate about that.
It is. Go ahead.
Go ahead. It is important that, like, especially as a cis white male, it is important also to, like, when you vote, don't always vote for the person who's best for you. Vote for the person who's best for everybody. Like, if you're in a position of privilege, there are a lot of options that are very beneficial to you that hurt a lot of other people.
Absolutely.
So just, like, I feel like, especially with 2020, with everything that's happened, like, now's not the time to do what's best for just you. It's time to do what's best for everybody. So that's why the research is so important, because what's best for me is definitely not what's best for everybody a lot of the times, because I'm in a very privileged position. So, do what's right. I think everyone has a fairly decent idea of what that is.
And speaking of trying to do stuff that's right in a terrible, awful, uncomfortable position, let's talk about the meat prison.
Let's talk about Barmwich. Oh my gosh. So as I was saying, this is part 3 of the Barmwich arc. If you missed part 1 and part 2, head over to our YouTube. Last episode encompassed sessions 48, 49, and 50. Today we'll probably be talking about sessions 51, 52, 53, maybe even up to 54. We'll see how far we get. We'll see how much I have prepped, and then we have, my notebook is like literally right here. So we're just going to be flipping through pages and chatting about stuff this way. We're really freewheeling it today. So I'll do a little bit of a recap. What Len and Sean and I talked about last week. We talked about getting into Barmwich and fighting some guards in the basement of the Still Peak Distillery, where Falric, a longtime family friend of Yana, that's his bar. We realized the captains had these intellect devourers in their head that popped out when we knocked them unconscious or killed them. And this was likely part of the mysterious fealty ritual that they take part in to become captains in the Glitter Guard. So we managed to talk some sense into 2 of the lower guards, Gordo and Pipkin, and we made a plan to get ourselves arrested so that we could go down into the secret jail that we knew was in the real jail below the Bright Keep to find Yana's parents. So Pipkin and Gordo parade us through the city, and we get to the prison, and we fight a couple more guards, and then we get inside. So using some magic vision and some searching the jail, we find the secret entrance. We travel down through the Underdark, traversing tunnels and laboratories. And in one of them, we find a drow in suspended animation who we figure out is Volketh. We bust him out. When Letters puts the ring of mind shielding back on him, which contained his sentience, he comes alive and teleports away. He just fucking vamps and he's gone. Then we come across this large underground lake where Finnan finds the staff of Relauven. He abjures Dave as his patron, who blinds him permanently, and then accepts Relauven as his new patron following the Pact of the Moonlit. And he uses goggles to wear the Seraph sight, so now he can see really far. You can see really, really far. So we then continue our exploration around, and we travel to a city or some settlement that Finnan saw across this lake. We circumvent a chasm and end up in a chamber with a bunch of cages where we come across what we think is Spooky's dad, Olin Wildcloak, and that's where we left off. So going into episode 51, we step into this room and we get attacked by 3 mindflayers at once, which was so trash. And we were just like, oh my gosh, people we can save. And then we're just like, nope, we're gonna fight a whole bunch of mindflayers. During the battle, Callie and Finnan fail some charisma saves, and then they start feeling like there's something that's creeped into their brain. They can't quite get it out. The feeling that's something is right behind them, watching them at all times. The feeling on that the hair on the back of your neck is standing up. Callie tries to shake it, but she can't, and she tries, but then she feels the presence retreating into her mind, and it's evading her. Finnan almost gets his brain eaten during this fight. He's grappled by a flayer, and the flayer has its mouth bits on Finnan's head, but he manages to break the grapple and get free. Yana gets the kill on the last flayer, and as she does so, her skin starts to look super, super desiccated, and her magic gets more yellow, which is the effects of her pants because they're now awoken. And she starts to, then she returns back to normal, and she's like, and we were like, Yana, are you okay? And she's like, what? And she had no idea it was happening. And what boggles my mind too is that this is the part of the story, like this is before the Velsoom arc. This is before we started streaming, obviously. But like stuff with Velsoom we knew was just like bad, but we didn't know how bad. We had no idea how bad it was going to get, because he was still just this like collector. There's still this sultan of, or the king of Bacall, that Kogani was just still sending stuff back to. Terrifying. So we managed to kill them all, and then we go look at this older gnome who we thought was Olin Wildcloak, but it turns out it's just an illusion on a dead gnome in the cage, and Yana is devastated. She's just like, she's wrecked. So after kind of like giving her a moment, we decide to press on, and this fight has wrecked us. That's what I remember, I think, the most about everything in the Underdark was like, or below Barmwich, was every fight wrecked us. It was just like we were decimated after every battle, like low on spells, low on health, to the point where like a short rest just wasn't enough. So in this room, we find a bunch of stuff. There's a bunch of items in this room. We find some coin and some gems. Kogani finds this iron circlet, like that he can wear on his head, that has High Tongue, which is the language of Arathis written on it, that says the eyes of the warden. And there is a black metal sickle, like a short curved, like spiked blade that seems to suck in the light around it. So we take all of those things. Then we head into this new room where there's a bunch of art, medical instruments, and there's this set of alchemical equipment that looks like it's a distillery, like a distillery of some kind. Letters and Neppy start to take a peek at it, and with some skill they manage to disassemble it and take it, and they figure out that it's likely a distillery kit to take essence from brains and make brain drugs. These are the infamous brain drugs that we keep talking about. Go ahead, Sean.
For the record, they're not necessarily brain drugs. I mean, you inject it and it feels real good, but it's not necessarily drugs.
No.
It is literally a distilled brain, and when you inject it, if you do it right, then you get something from that person's brain. Like at some point, Letters tests this and learns proficiency in a forgery kit, which is why last session Em was like, "Oh, I'm gonna do some maps." I'm like, "I'll help." Because I imagine duplicating a map would be not dissimilar to duplicating forging.
That's very true.
Something. So that wasn't just me being like, I'm going to give Finn some time. That was narratives and mechanics giving a little tiny peck, just a little one.
Oh, I wish I had caught that, but yes, you're totally right.
Yeah.
That would have been very helpful. Thank you for the map making assistance. I love it.
My pleasure.
And so we get this. There's like 7 jars that have brains in them, and this one loaded syringe that seems to have the essence of a brain already in it. The jars have labels on them from different races and ages and abilities, ranging from like this creature was gifted with arcane creation. This one was resistant to psionic probing.
Did they have names on them?
Some of them did. Yeah.
Are there names that we've either learned about since then, or names that you guys recognize?
Not at all. No.
This feels like a Tim breadcrumb. I'm just throwing it out there.
Trust me, I have looked
at those brain drugs.
They
feel like Tim breadcrumbs.
Tim breadcrumbs. Let me go grab. It's in the other book. Let me go grab it. Hold on.
Let me grab volume 1.
I mean, I feel like anytime a new name pops up, M does have a Rolodex where I was just saying, every time a new name comes up, you definitely check through your list of like names we've encountered but haven't encountered again, like names we know but don't really have context on.
Yes.
Like,
Control F in her brain, and then she types it in.
Okay, so this might be a little other tiny PSA. There is a tablet out there called a Remarkable. There's the brand new version, the Remarkable 2. So if anyone who is in any way, shape, or form works for a Remarkable ever sees this, I will plug your product all the time.
And we'll tattoo the name brand of your product on her body.
I will. It is like a tablet that you can like write on, and it will convert your writing to text, and it will like save it in documents. I want that. I want that more than almost anything. So I can literally Control F my notes sometime. So no, there is a dwarf named Bolin, who's gifted with arcane creation, an elf named Darkette, who's gifted with hypnotic portraiture. There's a human with name unknown who has unusual resistance to psionic probing. A Gith warrior named Gallo, who was gifted with weapons and stealth. A humanoid unknown species who was gifted with eliciting affection from people. An Umber Hulk brain. It said further studies required to enslave. And Clarda, who was an aberrant illithid who was gifted with arcane pursuits. So no, we have not come across any of those names as of yet. Bolin was the closest one with all the stuff in Searing Dune, but I was just like, I know that dwarf's name, but no, nothing. So we take all these jars and this one loaded syringe, and we put them in the bag of holding. While Letters and Neppy are taking a look at this, Callie takes a look at this piece of art that's in the room, and it seems to like talk to Callie. Not in a verbal way, but it's just like in her brain, and it's just like this. She's like, I start seeing. It's like one of those like searching image, the giant like concentric images where you stare at it and then you see something. That was like what it was like, and it feels hypnotic to her. Then we clear out the room, we head down another tunnel, and then Letters almost just like stops and feels his mind short out, and then he punches Finn in. And we find that there's this crystal in the wall that like shorted out his brain, and Callie breaks it. And we keep going up, and then we get into this larger cavern with a bunch of stone buildings, and we realize that we're in the place that Finn saw across the lake. Something really large lumbers by, and so we sneak into the town. It's like an old settlement of crumbling stone buildings, maybe 6 to 8 city blocks in diameter. We see this buildings, a tower, and then beyond the edge near the lake is a statue of Relauven that Finn saw from the other side. And most of the cave is illuminated by this like blue-green like phosphorescent algae. And then we see the figure in its entirety, and it's like 22 to 24 feet tall, gray skin, black mane, carrying an axe and a maul, and we have no fucking idea what it is. We're just like, that thing's big and it looks scary. And then we see movement, and then we move over, and then we make for this tower. This tower's like 3 stories high, and there's a bunch of claw marks. We go all the way up to the top, and we see this like satellite dish that seems to be transmitting something. If Callie feels it in her brain, and with Kokanee help, she's managed to like break that bond with whatever had reached out to her before. But the creature comes back towards the tower, so we make a break for it, and it's actually a cave giant is now essentially chasing us through this town, and we dip around, and we go over near the harbor, and we find a bunch of tracks and boats with webbing of some sort around it, and we choose this small house that seems to have like no webs on it, seems to be quiet, and we try and take a long rest. And Finnan manages to make the door like illusory and that we're not there. We almost get found by the giant while we're sleeping. Neppy attunes to that sickle, and it's named Snuff. And it can also turn into a scythe, which is pretty rad, which is the scythe she carries now. Pretty on brand for her, was really into that. And that one was one from the Griffin Saddlebag. So shout out to the Griffin Saddlebag. We love using their items over here as well. Tim does. And then Kokanee starts attuning to the circlet. And he has this like out of body experience, almost dreamlike. He sees flashes of this building with pillars, vaguely familiar symbols of Arathis. He hears the groaning of metal, Caraxian architecture, but he doesn't know where it is. And he takes the circlet off and is like on the brink of exhaustion. So,
and this would later be the first of the 3 circlets.
This is, yes.
What pilots the dragon, yeah?
Yes, yeah. So yes, absolutely right. This is the first one that we find. We're like, why the fuck is this Caraxian like relic here in the Underdark?
Also, without like derailing it too much.
No, please derail. Please derail me. I've been talking for like 5 minutes.
You guys found the 3rd circlet in the most random fucking way of like literally almost metagaming and being like, every time we go in a place, there's a circlet, so we should go take a look. And then you found it. And I've always wondered since that session, I don't know if that's a session we broadcasted or if that was the pre-stream one that I got to see. I can't quite remember. But I've always wondered whether or not Tim gave it to you purely because he was like, okay, I need you to have all 3 circlets now, or whether or not it was like an actual, like, if you hadn't gone in there, you wouldn't have found it.
Well, I think that one was one we streamed because it was in the Forbidden, if my memory serves me correctly, it was in the Forbidden Tomb.
Yes, it was when you guys, right before the battle.
Yes, yeah. The one with the Suspiria. And I think that they've always been in these places. And like
it just
Tim
felt really strange because you guys like called the shot before you took it. It was like It was like they're always in these kind of places. We should check this place out. And then
You
it
miss
was
100%
there.
of the shots you don't take, you know? So,
It's true.
but the lore fits for why it was in that temple.
Oh yeah. It's just,
Yeah.
it just seemed very, very strange. A separate question on a proper derailing note.
Please.
When you guys found the body that Volketh went in,
Yes.
I'm a little unsure. So it was a body in stasis.
Yes.
Had the mind flayer taken its brain or its no?
We didn't check.
Okay, so but it was an empty vessel. Otherwise, Volketh wouldn't have been able to take control.
It wasn't breathing.
Yeah. So then, my question is whose body was it? Because
We don't know.
We
so
have
like
no
I'm
idea.
just gonna put out the things that I've learned in no particular order.
Please do.
There's a drow body
Yep.
with no person in it,
Mhm.
like absent of personage,
Sentience, yeah.
and I prefer personage. And then right by
Personage,
it is a lake with the staff that Relalvin had right before he died.
Yes.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, because there were
Are you
drow-
hinting that could be
I'm
Relalvin's
asking,
body?
is it Relalvin's body?
No. I
Why
think
not?
I think Rysel would have recognized Relalvin's body, and Relalvin wasn't a drow.
Wasn't he half?
He's half, yeah, but he has like the like his skin is lighter than traditional drow skin tones, and his hair is like white gold.
Do we ever find out why? Like, is there ever an indication of why Relalvin's staff was there, or was it just there?
We don't know yet.
Okay.
We don't know yet.
It could be Relalvin's dad, the first drow. That is a
Varen?
possibility. Sure, why not?
I feel like he would
I
still
mean-
recognize him, but
I
I don't
don't
know if
think
I
Varen
don't know if
for the record-
Volketh would give anything
We
away.
have no idea though.
Yeah, we don't know how long. I mean, it was 5,000 years ago or whatever that all this happened, and
Yeah.
like
5,500, I think. Yeah.
that means that the mind flayers would have had to been there for millennia, and which is possible. I feel like they probably would have made the place a little nicer if that were the case. But we don't know. We don't know.
We
The
don't
point
know.
is, I don't have a point. We don't know who that body is.
I just feel like it's weird that there's a drow body right by Relalvin's staff,
Mhm.
and all I'm saying is, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that I don't trust Relalvin 100%. I don't like Volketh, but ever since that session, I'm not so sure about Relalvin anymore, guys.
Relalvin's
That's
sus.
super
I'm
fair. Be
soup
sus of
sus.
Relalvin.
Soup sus about Relalvin.
Yeah. Super
'Cause-
sus.
I mean, what if he was like trying to make people into drow?
Because like the whole like the backstory that we know of Relalvin based on what has been shared through visions with Finnan. So of course this comes with, with that lens as well, is that Relalvin was something fractured his parents' marriage, Varen, the first drow, the Lord of Night, and Zandalar, who was queen of the Illyrians. So we know that something fractured their marriage, and then it basically pitted the Illyrians against the drow in this huge civil war. And Relalvin was like, this has to stop. Like, we can't keep fighting. So anyone who he basically offered refuge and like as a place to like get all of these people away who didn't want to be involved in the civil war again. He provided, like, they were refugees, and they cultivated this settlement underground because Relalvin felt called to this place, and this, I can imagine it was likely long before the mind flayers showed up, because they are making use of all these buildings, as we'll talk about in a minute. But I don't think, like, after the fall of this settlement, of this city of Relalvin, I can't imagine that the mind flayers were that far behind it. If they were, or they could have brought that drow in from somewhere else. I'm like, who the hell knows how these mind flayers got here? Because mind flayers are popular in the, like, they populate the astral sea. But we don't know how and they can plane shift. So we have no fucking idea how they got here.
I'm just saying,
Why they came.
what if the mind flayers were there, and they delved too deep, Ella, the Hobbit, and they like awoke the mind flayers. But I got a lot of theories.
We'll have to see at the table.
I'm just
We gotta
saying.
see at the
We
table.
love a fan theory, though.
Super sus.
I'm here for your
sus.
fan theories, because I will say for a very long time, I was the only one in this party who talked about fan theories. So Yanis, I'm here for your fan theories. Thank you.
I guess that would have been a strange position to be in, to be both a player and a fan theory. But
if there is any interest in it too, so something that I did do during this time for this arc specifically, and a little bit before, is I created like voice recordings of me talking through the sessions that I would send to the group in case everybody needed a recap. So I'm thinking about like linking all of those together and posting it on YouTube, editing them.
They're so good because generally Em is whispering them because it's like a quiet time in the house.
Yes.
And also at the end,
or I'm like yelling in my car, because that's where I would record them.
And then at the end, she would be like, and so this is what I think. So like, that's the end of the important information. And now there's like conspiracy.
Now we're
time.
into
She's
conspiracy
like,
time.
I think this might lead to that and lead to that and lead to that. And it's just you winding yourself up and like coming up with new ideas on the spot. They are a delight to listen
and Tim's
to.
listening to it being like, oh yes, that's
Yeah, well, because what I would do, because I would like do these recordings and then I would leave like a 30-second break in the recording and I'd be like, okay, now we're into fan theories, and then we'll like dive into them. So
like a secret track hidden on the back of the voice memo.
Absolutely. And I would be like, prefacing now, if you don't want to hear my dumb fan theories, turn it off and stop listening. So if anyone wants to hear those things, I'm absolutely happy to string them together, and I will probably put them up over on YouTube in the history and lore section.
Well, I'm going to tell you my fan theory then. Sean, I don't know if you want to take your headphones out for it or not. But
I'll take my headphones out for any reason. Let's do it.
My fan theory is that Volketh, or whatever his real name is, who I always forget. Rysel. He was supposed to marry Relauven's mom. Because keeping the Illyrian bloodline Illyrian. And she went off with the drow, and then the drow killed her, and that's the reason he hates the drow.
Dang, that's a hot fan theory.
That's my fan theory.
That's a hot take, and I'm here for it. Yanis, more of these. More of these, please. I'm interested.
John, you're good.
Back in.
I didn't hear any of that, but just judging by Emma's reaction, that's a dynamite theory you got there.
It was a dynamite theory.
So that's my theory. So you guys ventured further down. There was a painting.
We just did a sleepy.
We just did a sleepy, and so we leave, knowing that we have to leave. We still have this like gnome that's traveling with us, Taryn from earlier. So we're basically like, shit's gonna get dangerous. Stay in this house. Here's a dagger. We'll come back for you.
So this is a trend, because you guys did this exact same thing in the battle with Velsum when you met, or pre-Velsum, you met
dude in the bar.
The dude in the bar.
Dag.
As well, yeah.
And
then you guys were like, hang out here. Seven came with you, but you left Dag, and you were like, here's a dagger, and hang out. So like generally, you guys find people. You say you're in for yourself. Stay hidden, and then you guys leave them.
Well, we knew that We knew that Seven was going to come back for Dag. But Seven volunteered to lead us to the sewers where we needed to go. But Dag couldn't travel because he was injured. So this one was a very different situation. Taryn could have come with us. And we were like, stay here in this house. You'll be fine.
I just didn't like Taryn. I was like, fuck this guy.
He, spoiler alert, he was not fine. But we'll
he
get
was
there.
not fine.
He was not fine. So that's the end of...
He lose his arm? Is he the one who lost his arm?
No, he lost a lot more.
He lost a lot more than his
although,
arm.
to be fair, this was the part of Letter's journey where he was just generally indifferent to the lives of others. So like, genuinely was like, oh yeah, we should leave this here. You'll be safer here. And Letters was like, yeah, you'll be safer here. I'm like, don't worry about it. It'll be fine. With no intention to come back and get this guy.
Oh my God.
So basically what you're saying is there was a lot of mixed messages to Finnan growing up, where it's like when he joined the party, lives didn't matter. And then all of a sudden lives mattered.
And they
he
matter
was
a
like,
lot.
and they mattered a lot. And he was like, you guys made such a 180 and I don't understand what's going on. Like, we've left so many people to die. And now all of a sudden you're like this bad guy who's clearly bad. You won't kill.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, cool.
The part
People
we call
grow,
that-
Yanis.
The party has grown.
Except for Finnan. He grew to match you guys in difference.
We're
And
getting
then
there.
you guys all grew a conscience.
Sweet
And
baby boy. I love that baby boy. So that was episode 51 or session 51. Sorry. We're now on to session 52. So like, this book, this was like, because we used to call this campaign beta campaign. So this book encompassed sessions 1 to 51. And that session 51 was the last one in this book. So we are officially, I mean, we'll come back to this one, but like as of right now, we're officially done.
Blackwater, we'll get to it.
Chatwater, we will go. We got to deep dive into the elemental chaos arc also, but now we're officially in the new book, first pages of notes, the fancy book where my notes just got way better. And then I actually started titling sessions, like giving them titles. So session 52 was called A Little Bit More Knowledge for You. And so we get up in the morning, Kokanee prays to Arathis a bunch and is like, please help us. Shit's going to get really bad. And she's like, sure, I care about you. You're a really great high priest. And so Frost, go ahead.
Quick question. So
yeah,
this was pre-Velsum arc.
Yeah.
But Kokanee was already a follower of Arathis.
Yes, he was the high priest of Arathis at this point.
So you'd already removed his heart.
No.
Oh, so he was a follower. I thought I didn't. Okay, my misunderstanding was I thought he became the high priestess of Arathis once he became a.
Faithforged?
Yeah, once he became a Pinocchio boy.
No, he's been the high priest of Arathis since like session. Yeah, he's
once he was replaced by the robot.
Yes.
So this is the real Kokanee.
So he still had the his heart in the chest that Velsum could steal, but like we went to Caradoc when he was pronounced the high priest of Arathis, like session 15. So that's like way before this. So he's been the high priest of. There was no temple to Arathis.
But Velsum could still crush his heart
at any point.
At this point.
Yes. And he was still like having to send things back.
I'm going to build from here on out, based on what Sean said. I'm going to build a Blackwater universe where, at the end of every session, you guys all skip vote on whether or not Kokanee's the imposter. The entire time, the robot that's pretending to be Kokanee is just further and further gaining your trust.
Here's the thing. The entity we knew as Kokanee is dead and in all likelihood in hell. But the new machine created by Arathis to replace him does
Terminator
believe
Kokanee.
it is him. Yeah, I mean, it is just like human skin tightly stretched over a skeletal. I mean,
in Terminator, was he T1? He was the T2000 or what was it?
T800.
T800. So it's K800. So
yeah,
Kokanee's
exactly.
the K800.
So, just saying, since he became a faith forged, he's never broken a bone. He can't because they're made of titanium. Like this is the thing. In all, like on the outside, you'd never notice a difference because it believes it's Kokanee and it behaves like Kokanee, and we all love it. But at some point, there is some programming in there. Sleeper agent, which will be just as traumatic for us as it will be for him.
Neppy, did you and Kokanee fall in love pre or post him being sleeper agent?
Pre.
Did you though?
Ooh.
I'm no, but did we verbalize affection pre Faith Forged, or was that the inciting?
No. Kokanee and Neppy were together at like literally the day after the first battle of Gatestone Keep. The night Torrin died, they were just like that's when they told each other.
Okay, so you fell in love with the original Kokanee, but you married K800.
Yes, apparently.
Interesting.
Yeah.
This is not a fan theory. This is just the canon theory.
We are just waiting. Now, here's where it gets really interesting because K800 has the sleeper agent programming from Arathis, but he's also got the brands from the Matron of Vengeance. So what will be really compelling is if both of those, like, I have a hold over you, happen at the same time, whose divine, like, control is strongest. And it may be even such that it, like, overloads his circuit board and he just, like, collapses or, like, goes deranged.
Some
or,
weeks
like,
it's Minotaur Utters, some weeks it's the name of the month, and this week it just happens to be Whether Kokanee the Terminator.
No, not whether he is.
Listen,
it's how it's going to relate to the story.
We've established and maybe not on the show, but we all personally have established Tim's obsession with Terminator.
Yeah, Termies in Time.
Exactly. So we've all established his obsession with Terminator. So it is not far-fetched that there's a Terminator arc built into this campaign. That's all I'm saying. All I'm saying is knowing Tim, that is a very valid assumption that this is somehow all a Terminator tribute.
I don't know if that fits Matt's aesthetic for Kokanee, but like, hey,
Matt doesn't get to decide.
Yeah, Matt died. Matt died. He's playing a robot right now until the robot's will is taken from him.
Right.
Matt doesn't know that Kokanee is a K800 because the K800 doesn't know it's a
K800. Exactly.
Well, maybe I've just been wrong this whole time. I can
it raises an interesting question of what makes us human. But
yeah.
Because if K800 believes he's human, I mean, isn't he not?
Well, that's the thing. He's not human. He's a faith forge.
Well, but
what acts is what makes a person.
Okay. Hear me out. The person, like the faith forged, who's probably the closest to a Terminator, Magrin. Magrin is also a faith
so you admit that faith forged are like Terminator?
No, I don't, because all of the thralls in Bacall, when we were there, like they were all faith forged as well. Like all of the people with the chains in their wrists, they were all faith forged as well. And they were some sentience of, they were partially undead, but they were like not.
So they were kind of like robots.
Oh my God, moving on.
Let's touch on Magrin, because the creation of Magrin was really interesting because we haven't seen a faith forge create itself before. No. However, she was operating with like the fucking hammer of Seer, and when she was doing it, she like, and I'll paraphrase Tim, but it was kind of quoted like, I was moving on my own, or it was guiding me. She was sort of operating in like a Jesus take the wheel situation.
Seer take the wheel situation.
Exactly. Yes. So if there is some sort of sleeper agent, programmed into her new body that she is. So this one we know for sure, her consciousness is the original trajectory of Magrin's consciousness. So that's definitely Magrin in this new body, but we don't know what she built into the body in addition to the body when she made it.
But like Arathis didn't build Kokanee a new body. She just built him a heart.
No.
And it's not even, she didn't even build him a heart.
That's what she's told you.
She took it from Cog.
That's what she told you. You left a Kokanee, left, and came back, and she said, here is a Kokanee. It's probably the same one. That is a direct quote.
So I think what's happening is Arathis creates Kokanee.
Yes. No. She takes the key.
You can't take it back. You said yes. You said
Sean.
yes.
She takes the heart out of Cogman, which is the key and the seal, and it was Cogman's power source. And she takes it, and because Kokanee doesn't have a heart, she puts it in Kokanee. That's it.
Okay.
She puts it in a vessel that appears to be Kokanee. But can you deny that, like, you saw what you brought as Kokanee? No. All I'm saying is there was a time, a not inconsiderate amount of time, where you brought her a Kokanee, you left, and you came back, and she said, "This is the same Kokanee," and you just said, "I believe you," and then exactly what you saw happened. A heart was taken out of the Cogman and put into this supposed Kokanee, and what awoke was supposedly Kokanee 2.0, or as we correctly know him, K800.
So, I'm going to go back to try and make my joke that you cut me off of.
Please, yes. Please make
Arathis creates Magrin. Arathis destroys Magrin. Arathis creates Kokanee. Kokanee creates Magrin.
No.
Wait, how does Kokanee create Magrin?
He hasn't yet.
Magrin
I'm
already
lost.
exists. What are you
Megan
talking
already
about?
exists, dude.
Yanis, you're in the fourth dimension right now.
Yeah.
Wait,
Yanis
we're in
is
the fourth
seeing-
dimension, are we? Fifth.
What
Well,
I'm saying is
Magrin's a
it's
fake
exactly like the
Borgia seer.
Jurassic Park quote.
Hmm.
Life finds a way.
God creates dinosaurs. God kills dinosaurs. God creates man. Man kills God. Man creates dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs
What I'm saying
kill
is
man.
Exactly. So Kokanee's going to kill Arathis. Then he's going to make Magrin. And then Magrin's going to kill Kokanee.
This doesn't make sense because Magrin already exists.
Magrin already exists, and
But
she
he's
called
dead
him
now.
seer.
Didn't he
What?
die to make Kokanee? He gave
Who?
him Magrin.
Cogman.
Sorry,
Cogman.
I meant Cogman.
Oh. All right,
So
say it
Arathis
again.
makes Cogman.
Look, okay?
Yes.
Arathis kills Cogman.
Yes.
Yes.
Arathis creates Kokanee.
Uh-huh.
Kokanee kills Arathis.
Yes.
Kokanee creates Cogman. Cogman kills Kokanee.
Yes, 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 and the cycle continues.
And the cycle continues.
I hate it. Can we get back to Barmwich? I know we've
Yes.
diverted.
If we
If
have.
I must, let's maybe get through one.
But I
more
like
episode.
K800.
Yeah, just talk about
K800
the-
is, well,
solid stuff.
Next time we have Matt on the show, he can confirm. Or
He doesn't
deny.
know. Stop using
Okay.
that as a source. Your bibliography is, you're like citing Wikipedia at this point.
Thank you. Yes, my lore keeping is equivalent to Wikipedia.
No.
Thank you so much.
I'm not saying your lore keeping is equivalent. Well, it is equivalent to Wikipedia. But what I'm saying is that your citations are Matt, who doesn't know that he's K800.
that's the whole point of a K800.
Whole
Right.
point.
The sleep
Is that
agent.
they are the monster who believes they are a man.
Guys,
Neo
I just wanna talk
didn't know
about-
he was in the Matrix.
I just want to
That's
talk about
true.
Zelix. Can I talk
Swamp
about
Thing
Zelix?
thought he was the guy the whole time. Turns out he was a sentient bunch of moss that believed it was the guy.
So many examples, Em.
So many examples.
You'll never convince me.
It's a
but if it-
trope. It's a trope. Tim's relying on a trope, to be completely honest.
Honestly, a little bit lazy.
A little bit lazy, but yeah.
It's gonna be like really not Tim's style, but okay. Like,
Okay, tell us. So we've done the sleepies,
yes, we've done the sleepies.
except
We get up.
Kokanee, who of course pretends to sleep because
Yes.
his
Who
circuitry
goes
doesn't
into
actually
standby
require it.
mode.
Yeah.
He only sleeps because he believes he has to, because that's still the like human part of his mind.
For fuck's sake.
So
Yes,
Kokanee lies motionless for 8 hours, and then
and then when he
rises
wakes
to
up, he
consciousness.
prays to his god, and he gets a bunch of new spells.
Kokanee
like,
clicks on the little Apple icon in the top hand and goes sleep.
Wait,
now.
no, he's not K800 yet. This is OG Kokanee.
This is OG. He actually
This-
sleeps.
Yeah, he does sleep. He gets
Em's
like good
crashing
RAM.
right now. Speaking of a Mac metaphor, Em's freezing up right now.
This is the little pinwheel is just spinning and spinning.
Cody, can you control alt delete M, please?
I don't have enough coffee to deal with. No. So he gets new spells like Ice Bayonet and Heavenly Bullet. Finnan tries to speak to Dave or his will to be like, hey, you didn't need to blind me, dude. You just weren't being very helpful to me. And his will is just doesn't speak back to him. Pretty stalwart about it. So we go back to this tower, and Letters ferries us up with Flight again. And the dish doesn't look different from the last time we saw it. And then all of a sudden it lifts off and starts flying straight at Neppy and crashes her into a wall. And then she's like, oh shit. And so she like pushes off this levitating disc and like redirects it off the top of the tower, and it careens down and crashes into the ground. But the signal still feels like it's being sent. So we run down and we start beating the shit out of this dish to like break it as much as we can. And then Finnan, with his super amazing vision, sees like 2 mind flayers off in the distance, uses silent image to distract them and the giant. And then we start scouring other parts of the city. We come, and now I am like off of my notes that I have made, and I am now in the book. So if you see me looking down, that's why. So we get to this like little cluster of 3 buildings. Where am I here? Yeah. So we start, and then we start hearing the approach of the cave giant. It's got like dull gray skin. It's got like tattoos, a black mane of hair, and the doors of this 2-story building are over here are closed. So we are like, well, let's just try and go to these small cluster of buildings. Spooky sends Wiggles to look inside, and we see 3 cages inside. We see there's a female gnome, a male gnome, and a female Therbogue in these cages in this first house. And Yana looks through Wiggles' eyes and sees that one of the female gnome is Annalyn Stonebrook, who was her mentor when she was younger. So Yana's like, we have to go back into them. And so we turn around and we go near to this, and we're like, okay, well, they're in cages. There's nobody in there. We're just going to leave them for a second. We will be back. So we circle back, and we go to this 2-story building, and this is the meat prison. We arrived at the meat prison finally, which is what this isn't not us like fucking around with Tim's lore. This is what Tim referred to this building as. He called it the meat prison.
We just got to the meat prison, Yanis.
We just got to the meat prison. We finally arrived. So in the
what made it the meat prison? Because honestly, I've just fallen so in love with the title that I just say it a lot. I couldn't tell you whether the walls were made of meat or that the key you had to turn was meaty. So essentially, we go into this building and there's a bunch of cages and there's people in these cages and are yelling at us like, run, you have to get out.
All prisons are essentially meat prisons is what you're saying.
Well, so as we get inside, the doors slam closed behind us and these 2 creatures, these 2 ogres jump down and start fighting us. And then this Ulatharid, like an elevated mind flayer, the big kahuna comes in and starts fighting us, and it just starts like wrecking us. We're just getting absolutely wrecked in this fight. And so what we learn this a little bit later, but the reason it's called the meat prison is essentially this is where the flayers were storing all of their food. So flayers eat brains. So they were basically just being like, you're a person in a cage. I am going to eat your brain when I'm hungry. That's why it was the meat prison. Yeah. That's why it's called the meat prison, Sean.
So, Illithid just eat the brain raw, huh? They really go for that, like, neural sashimi.
Yum.
Okay. That's awful.
Yeah. So in this fight, there was an Ulatharid who had legendary actions, 2 Illithid, a giant, 2 ogres, and us. So we get pretty wrecked in this fight. We managed to kill the ogres, kill the giant, kill the 2 Illithids, but both the ogres have intellect devourers in their heads. Naturally, big ones. So we kill those 2. The Ulatharid tries to rip out Kokanee's brain because it has him grappled, and he manages to break the grapple and get out of it. And we just Neppy kills one of the Illithid. This is when Letters walled off the Ulatharid upstairs with that wall of fire, thinking that it would just block it from getting downstairs. But once we had killed everything else, we ran upstairs to try and get the Ulatharid, and the Ulatharid was gone. So it essentially plane shifted out, so it got away, which was a big old bummer. And I have a fan theory about that. I don't know if Sean, if you want to take your head.
This is the one where it's that might have been Cora Stormgage.
I think that's Cora Thorngage. That Ulatharid is Cora.
You think Cora is bad?
Cora Fildo's husband, who used to be the Queen of Wolfrine? Yeah.
No, but I mean, you think that, she was an Illithid?
I think she is an Illithid who was disguising herself as a halfling and took over the, throne of Wolfrine for reasons we will discuss later on. So up at this point, what we know about Cora is that she sucks. She's Fildo's husband, or Fildo's wife. She got Fildo charmed the council to get her on the council, and she somehow managed to get herself promoted to queen, and she's a couple days away from coronation at this point.
But so we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, but so you guys never ended up killing her?
Cora's alive.
So Cora's alive, and she ran away.
Yeah, Neppy did send to her in the astral plane.
Yeah, and was
is she in the astral sea?
Yeah, I think so.
We believe so.
Yeah.
And so she's probably that Illithid.
She's probably, the super intense Ulatharid. Yeah, we're pretty sure.
So then, do you think that her husband was also one?
No.
We'll get to that.
We're getting there.
We do have an answer to that one. That's not a fan theory. We know what happened to Fildo.
So we like go
And
through
it
this
involves
fight.
clack.
Yes.
Dildo bag.
We go through this. There's a bunch. So we're in the meat prison. We've killed everything that that was fighting us, and the Ulathard is gone. And we there's like 20 dead corpses in here who have had their brains ripped out. Callie and Neppy and Kokanee go around like healing whoever they can. Callie's essentially like using all of her lay on hands to just like bring people back from the brink of death. And Finnan starts yelling. We start like looking through all the rooms, and Finnan starts yelling for Spooky's dad, like looking for Olin, and we find a cage with him in it, and he's not moving. Finnan heals him, Callie breaks him out, and then Letters starts like canvassing the crowd for like, who knows what's happening here? Like, are you people all okay? And while that's happening, so they're staying at the meat prison, and while that's happening, Kokanee, Neppy, and Spooky run to those 3 other buildings that we had seen before. So we go in the first building. Spooky disarms, finds the trap and disarms it. Kokanee tries to pick the lock on the door and fails, and Neppy's just like, fuck this, we have to get inside, and she kicks down the door and just goes inside. And we see Annalyn Stonebrook, who is Spooky's mentor, and we find Coramin, Horland's son, the one that Neppy had been asked to find. And Annalyn's like scratching at her eye. Also, a bit of a content and trigger warning. We start talking about a little bit of body horror stuff about like illithids doing things to people's brains and stuff. So like, if this is something that is not okay for you, feel free to like turn us off or do whatever you need to help yourself stay comfortable. So we'll be talking about a little gross, icky stuff a little bit. So Annalyn starts like scratching at her eyes, and like they put something in our heads. And Coramin is like, they told us we were different, we were destined for greatness. And yesterday something crawled inside my eye. They put something in my eyeball, and these cages are spaced like 5 feet apart. And we're thinking there, and Neppy's like, okay, because Neppy knew a little bit about flayers from what she had read about them in like the archives, whatever Philenis had. And she's like, okay, the procreation of illithids is unknown to us. We don't know how they replicate. We don't know how they create more illithid, and it's likely not an intellect devourer that is in their head, because seems to be very different, and the captains had intellect devourers. So like, why would these people who said they were special and different and told they were different be in these cages? So Letters comes over, joins Neppy and Kokanee, and Finnan is like, Spooky, we found your dad. And so she goes back, and then Callie they go back over there, and they reunite. It's beautiful. Like Yana just like hugs her dad, and they're so happy to see each other. And he's like, Fildo's mind is not his own. He says that they're doing this for Garl, meaning Garl Glittergold, the like gnomish and halfling god. And Olin starts telling us that they're trying to bring Garl into this world, and Yana's like, what? Like, that makes no sense. And that they twisted that Garl has twisted his mind, or that whatever's going on here has twisted his mind, and that he's really proud of her. And they have this like beautiful, lovely reunion, and I was crying, and it was great. Because anytime Yana sees her family, I start to get all mushy on the inside. So then we go back to Kokanee and Neppy and Letters, and it's one of the best moments, the best like narrative mechanics kissing moment that has happened during this campaign.
Can I hop in here?
Yes.
So we go back and forth, and I'm like, all right, there are little wormies inside these people's heads that will turn them into mind flayers.
Yes.
That's a situation that went in there yesterday. We don't know how long, but over the course of days, maybe weeks. Oh no, fucking somebody did say something. It's like after like 3 days or something, something happened. So in like short order, these people will no longer be people the way we know it.
Stage 1 to be prepped into illithid. They were like, you have this little thing inserted into your eyeball yesterday to be.
And like, we look at each other, we're looking at Neppy. I think a lesser restoration, we try that on. It doesn't seem to have an effect. We go back and forth. We're really scratching our heads, and
Neppy's like, I could kill you and then just bring you back. Like, we're just like, we got to the point where we were talking about killing these people.
But we don't have enough diamonds for everybody. No. Like, it's the type of thing where it's like, we cannot let these people become illithid. Like, we might just have to, like, you know, ice them. And then
they were
Matt.
ready. And they were ready to be like, if this is what's going to happen to us, we don't want to live anymore.
And then Matt gets this little twinkle in his eye, and he says, Tim, at this stage in the process, would the little wormies be like a part of them, or would they be like a different thing inside their head? And Tim goes, at this point, there are two different entities. Like, they have these things inside them. And Matt says, okay, I cast Spiritual Guardians. And the way Spiritual Guardians does damage to everything in the region except the creatures you choose. So he chooses all the party and the 3 people in the cages, but not the things in their head. And so, and Tim just goes like, yeah, it works. Like, he really had to like check his notes and the math, but like fucking Matt's Kokanee's little like divine helpers just do like brain surgery on these 3 people, and they are cleansed of
and it's like, okay, another trigger to like a body horror moment. They have like these globs of stuff coming out of their nose, just like plopping on the ground, and we see like remnants of these like small creatures are on the ground, and the people are fine. They're a bit shook because of like, what the fuck is this coming out of my face? And they're like insect like almost like chitinous, small wriggly wormy things, but they're dead and out of their bodies.
Non-invasive spiritual neurosurgery.
Divine neurosurgery. That's what that was. I loved it. It was so good. We all around the room, we were just like, oh, we were so stoked.
It was like
in that moment.
The one just genuinely good thing to happen since we arrived at Barmwich.
Yeah,
we're like, even finding Yana's dad, who's like, oh, he's all fucked up. We don't know if we can get him out. And like, this fucking guy, we're gonna have to leave him with a dagger. And like, oh no, everything's a lie. Everything's a trap. And then like, even the art is gonna fuck with our brains. And then just one thing was just, unequivocally a win for Blackwater. And it felt very good.
Felt so good. So I think based on time, we'll probably have a sense to get to the end of this session. We only covered 2 sessions this episode, but we'll get to the end of this one, and then we'll probably call it for here.
Yep.
And then we'll dive into, because the next session 53, 54, and 55 and 56 are like the end of the Barmwich arc. We could almost be done the end of the Barmwich arc, guys. Who knows how long it'll take us. So we go into the second house, which is the second building. So there was like 3 buildings in progression, and then so Annalyn, Coraline, and the Furbolg, whose name we don't know yet, she's still pretty shaken, comes with us. So we go into the second house, which is, I guess, like stage 2 illithid folks. There's 3 cages. There's a human, and there's like, he's like manipulating stuff with his hand. His name is Oscar, and he tells us that he's like, please, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be this. Like, promise me that if you ever go to Cinderfall, you'll find my wife, and my son, and tell them I love them, which was like heart-wrenching. And so we're like, okay, like, are you sure? Like, we can try this beer? And he's like, because it had already bonded with him at that point, and he was already like giving some of the like arcane stuff, and I think he had said he was like 5 days or something into the process. So then we look at the next cage, and there's someone who's curled up like in a ball. Their skin is really moist. It looks like purple and bruised. Their back is there's like some weird bone structure happening with their back. And then they turn, and they have some like longer tentacle things like growing out of their face. And the second they see us, they lash at the edge of the cage and just start thrashing at it to try and get out and attack us. So we end up with like Oscar's acceptance, like killing him I guess as an act of mercy on him, and killing this like pseudo illithid that is in this cage. That one felt pretty shitty. I didn't like that one. And that was like Kokanee, Neppy, and Letters at this point, just the three of us. So then we go in this last building, and there are again 3 cages. There's 4 cages, I think, at this point. There's 3. There's one, and the first thing we see on the ground is a dead, full illithid outside of the cage, just dead on the ground. And we're like, oh shit, like what the fuck is happening here? In the 2 of the cages, the 2 figures are dead, and they're like 90% of the way through the illithid transformation process, like ceratogenesis, I think is what it's called in D&D lore. Anyway, and then in the last cage, we see a small gnome-sized illithid, like fully illithid, but maintains some of the characteristics of a gnome. And he tells us his name is Zelix, that he doesn't like illithid, and he wants revenge on the people who did this, or the beings that did this to him, the illithid. And he's like, I killed that one, the full-size illithid. And we were like, oh shit. We're like, well, you want the illithid dead? So do we. Do you want to come with us and work with us? And like there was a bunch of insight checking going around, and he seemed pretty on the level. So we let him out, and he agrees to like work with us as a ally of necessity, I suppose. And we then travel back to the meat prison to try and figure out what's going on there before we try and go find the elder brain. And that was the end of episode 52, or session 52. And that's probably where we should leave it for today.
So did you, maybe this is something you can tell me whether or not you find this out later, but did you ever figure out who the gnome-like illithid was before?
No.
We haven't yet. All we know is his name is Zelix. He's a real straight shooter and kind of a fun guy. I think he's great.
Yeah.
Not fun like he's going to suggest a party, but he's like, I think we should kill the mind flayers. And we're like, hell yeah.
Hell yeah, buddy. Down to party, for sure.
Illithid are the fancy mind flayers, right?
Ulathar.
Ulathar are the fancy.
The elevated fancy mind flayers. And then illithid are like regular mind flayers.
Illithid just means like
all
anything.
mind flayers in general.
That means mind flayers, intellect devourers, wormy boys, those weird little rats. It's like the species that is these purple squiddy brain, like elder brains are also illithid.
So they used to be people that get transformed, or they take on the memories of people.
We don't know.
We don't really know, because there was.
We know that they were making people into it.
Yeah, the only thing we knew was that the like mind flayer creation process. We figured out it takes about a week. It takes a really, really strong brain to handle it, and that the colony of flayers who'd been doing this were at work credit for a while. They'd been at work, and then the Ulathar, the like big ultra illithid, was the one that we think is Cora. Yeah.
So this gnome-sized one could have been like a brain that retained its consciousness, essentially.
Yes. Yeah, that's what Tim explained to us. He's like, basically from what you figured out about the process, he's like, it's like the process worked, but it didn't transform him fully physically. Like he still had tentacles, but he was gnome-sized, still able to float, still able to do all of the like psionic things that flayers can do, but maintained the body of a gnome. And apparently there's something in like D&D canon, like rules and stuff like that about mind flayers, that the process can like 95% of the way work, which is essentially what happened with Zelix. And he retains his like sentience of being personage of Zelix, the person. Whether Zelix was his like flayer name or whether that was his gnome name, we have no idea.
Zelix wasn't super chatty. He was real kind of like standoff and aloofish, which is like part of his charm. Yeah. So like
he was like, we're gonna go kill this. He's like, we're going to kill.
Yeah, Zelix doesn't really need your approval, and that's what makes him so attractive. You know, you want to go to him.
Can I ask you a question?
Please, Dish.
How much do we know about Garl?
Garl Glittergold. At this point, we know that he's a gnomish and halfling god. He's primarily was worshipped in like Shinkick, in some ways, but they were also worshiping Arathis kind of tangentially through Nissa. And
But is he
primarily
good?
Yeah, he's like a neutral good god.
Because they were trying to bring him back, you said.
Yes, Fildo was convinced that what he was doing in Barmwich was for the good of Garl Glittergold, to bring Garl back to the material plane.
And is Garl
we'll see how that pans out next session. Next session of this, we're gonna go all into Fildo and Glitter Garl. It's the whole thing.
So, but I mean, Garl is a well-known
gnome and halfling god. Yes.
Okay.
It would be like if we went to Dresda 50 years down the line, and like that gnome priest that fucking Kokanee just ran into was like working with some fucking demon. Is like, yeah, we're bringing Arathis back into the world. It would be that kind of equivalent where it's like, this is a god people know, this is a god people pray to, and for some reason, this gentleman has decided to pair with mindflayers to like
bring Garl back,
like ascend this existent god to something else.
Yeah,
I'll tell you why I ask, because it sounds very similar to Task, and Task is very glittery, and so in my mind I was like, how much do we know about Garl? Because it's strange that you run into two different groups trying to bring back or trying to elevate people to godhood, especially when they're both shiny.
Oh,
just wait till next session.
All
will be revealed.
Okay.
All will be revealed.
Yeah.
People will get pushed in pits. Yes.
There will be pit pushing.
There's pit pushing.
Next session.
There'll be brain eating next session.
Next session was absolutely the peak of Letters is getting the pit phase. We haven't had a lot of pits since then for people to get into, but
yes,
that was a real special session for
honestly
me.
It's my hope that there's more pits coming up, because like Letters deserves to put something in
Letters is going to introduce, once he becomes a land baron in Wolfreen, like an infrastructure plan to just have a pit like
accessible
every couple
pits.
Of blocks. Everyone's going to have access to the pit, so that theoretically if you ever got into like a street fight, there would never be a pit too far away that you couldn't put someone in a pit.
Pits for
he's about to get in the fight, and he's like, can we take this like half a block down?
Block that way.
Why? No reason at all. Just like, let's
Better
take
lighting.
It half a block down.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
46th and 9th.
Can we rotate a little bit so your back's to the pit?
Oh, he'll rotate them for him. Like, Letters got no problem rotating people, unless they're Remoras.
I can't wait to talk about the last couple sessions of the Barmwich arc, because I think something for us, which felt really cool as a party, if I think about group dynamics and when we talked about RPG theory so long ago on chatWater, is like, this is the point where we were like hardcore into performing. Like, we were gelling, there was flow, there was so much immersion. We would play for like 4 hours from like 7:30 to 11:30 and be like, yeah, I got time for another hour and a half. And we were just like, when can we play again? When can we play again? When can we? And it was just, we were just firing on all cylinders, and it was so good. Some very juicy D&D, very juicy, very squiddy D&D.
Speaking of, we do got to bring it back. We got to end this session.
Yes.
And so let us kiss to the viewers and be very excited for next week when we get to share it. But thank you for joining us.
Wednesday.
Yes.
Behind the screen.
When we get behind the screen and talk about D&D stuff, DM stuff, Dungeon Masters.
Good
night, everybody.
We'll see you on Saturday as well. Good night, you guys.
Bye.